The final stretch of the war commences as Tang army finally moves to advance with the newly built platform to reach the insides of Ansi Fortress. But as soon as they reach the area of the shallow sand part, the large platform falls, creating an opportunity for General Yang and his army to strike and finally end the war against Taizan. The movie begins at the field of Mount Jupil, where the two armies, Goguryeo and Tang army, are about to face each other. 200,000 troops of Tang engage against the 150,000 Goguryeo troops regardless of being 50,000 soldiers less. Goguryeo cavalry advances while looking down to protect their heads from the upcoming arrows from Tang archers. But as soon as Goguryeo troops advance and defeat the front line of Tang's troops, Taizan alerts the hiding troops as they emerge from their rear to commence a back attack. It turns out that their count is not only 200,000 troops but more, but Taizan's troops overpower them, whereas Goguryeo troops resort to retreating to avoid losing more men. Meanwhile, Samul, one of the Goguryeo troops, refuses to retreat as he thinks there is still a chance to fight Taizan and his army. He vigorously swings his sword, killing multiple enemies after leaving his horse to help his comrade. Soon after, his comrade gets sliced by Tang's general, and Samul notices that from every side of the battlefield, Goguryeo is losing. They finally retreat, but Samul still cannot accept that they lost the battle. Later that evening, after the massive battle, Taizan captured a Goguryeo medium, where she brought the holy bow and arrow of King Chimong. She also can foresee the future where Taizan uses her to bring the tides of war to his side. Taizan attempts to use the holy bow and arrow but fails as it gets harder to use, as according to a legend, only a worthy person can wield it. Meanwhile, the tactician informs Taizan of one roadblock to the capital, the Ansi Fortress. Still, he claims it is easy to conquer as they have a small number of soldiers. Taizan then orders his troops to prepare and attack Ansi Fortress. That same evening, General Yun orders Samul to infiltrate Ansi Fortress and assassinate General Yang of Ansi as part of his mission. The following morning, Samul travels multiple mountains while riding a horse. He encounters two Goguryeo patrol guards that aid him in his mission. Later, Samul and the patrol guards encounter a stuck wooden caravan pushed by a man alongside some guards and an older woman. They ask Samul for some help, and they carefully approach and help. Eventually, the man introduces himself as General Yang of Ansi. He orders his guards to kill the patrol guards on suspicion of being part of Taizan's troops. He knocks down Samul and takes him as a prisoner. General Yang then drags an unconscious Samul and his horse toward Ansi Fortress, where the citizens of Ansi are pleased to see General Yang as he passes by the town square. A soldier then approaches them to inform them about his two lieutenants, causing a scene at the marketplace. As soon as they arrive, the place is filled with chaotic soldiers. Hualbo and Peng and their troops are throwing punches at each other, and the vendors are concerned that they might lose some soldiers in the war. Eventually, General Yang shouts, "Close order formation," which makes every soldier form a square formation and listen to him. He then orders them to distance themselves from each other to avoid any commotion. After the scene at the market, General Yang interrogates Samul about various things, such as his position at Goguryeo and if people from Ansi are being discriminated against. But Samul diverts the conversation to focus by informing General Yang that his main goal for returning to Ansi is to help them fight the war. After some time, General Yang is eating with his troops, and he entrusts Samul as his right hand and flag raiser for future wars. The following morning, General Yang is up early and aids his troops by boosting their morale and helping them accomplish their tasks efficiently by giving them more manpower. Samul notices that General Yang is not a ba but just cares for the citizens and his troops. Meanwhile, General Yang is finding one of the best soldiers in his squad, named Paso. Paso is nowhere to be found, but General Yang remembers that he is sometimes at his sister Becca's resting place because they are lovers. Eventually, all the Ansi troops are all together. Still, they notice that there is a small scouting group that is looking at Ansi Fortress from afar. General Yang informs everyone that Taizan is nearby as his troops are already scouting the area. He then orders his troops to prepare for an upcoming fight with the Tang army, where 5,000 of his troops rally towards every corner of the Ansi Fortress to avoid letting soldiers slip past the defenses. As soon as they raise the flag, the Tang army arrives in great numbers as if they are going all out against the outnumbered troops of General Yang. The Tang army immediately sets up their giant catapults and archers while waiting for Taizan's orders to attack Ansi Fortress. Despite being greatly outnumbered by Tang army, General Yang delivers a beautiful speech about not backing out of any fights. Thus, telling them to remember who they are protecting and why they joined the army. Meanwhile, on the other side of Ansi Fortress, Taizan tells his soldier to make a scene and do everything to conquer Ansi Fortress. And kill everyone regardless of age or gender. The attack starts as Taizen orders his troops to fire the catapults at the walls of Ansi Fortress. Although it does not hit any soldiers so far as the battle progresses, the aim of the catapults gets better and eventually hits multiple Ansi soldiers from afar. General Yang, a known strategist, retaliates by ordering his troops to prepare the traps inside and outside the Ansi Fortress that will be good for defeating enemies complacent about the massive gap in soldier count. Ansi's archers are so precise and efficient that they hit the front lines and back lines, regardless of having proper armor or shield to block the arrows. Eventually, some of the Tang soldiers advanced and attempted to climb the walls to attack from the inside. General Yang then orders his troops to remove the larger traps to fend off the soldiers getting inside or above the walls. It successfully pushes them away from the walls and makes them faint. Meanwhile, the two second-in-command, Paso and Becca, are preparing for the orders of General Yang when to attack and serve as reinforcement of Ansi. The front lines of Ansi are great as it composes of General Yang, Hualbo, and Peng's squad taking care of the advancing enemies. Eventually, some Tang soldiers create an alternative route and forcefully open the main gate of Ansi to infiltrate it from the inside and out. General Yang then orders Paso and Becca to commence the second phase of their attack, where they will deploy several other traps to annihilate the Tang soldiers. Little by little, the large number of Tang soldiers decreases quickly, which alarms Taizen. Regardless of losing many of his soldiers, he is still complacent that his troops can overpower the puny Ansi soldiers. General Yang then shouts his next move by telling everyone to commence close order formation, to create enough space for his troops to fight together. At the same time, supporting each other figuratively and physically. Eventually, Taizen realizes that he needs to order his troops to retreat as they lack preparation due to being overly complacent about the number and power difference. Meanwhile, the Ansi troops are celebrating as they overcome the great challenge of not losing, regardless of being on the other side of the coin where they are greatly outnumbered. Later that evening, General Yang is talking to Samuel, and he keeps asking why and how they won. General Yang then replies that they always need to fight regardless of being outnumbered and try their hardest to fight and protect the people they care about. After some time, one evening, General Yang and Samuel talk to each other as they both realize that there are still problems excluding Taizen's plan of attack. General Yang explains that you need to forgive and give people more chances. Still, Commander Yun does not want any connection with him. Samuel then attempts to stab him, but General Yang explains his side that fighting Taizen in an open space is simply suicide. Their conversation is put on hold as one of the Ansi soldiers informs them that Taizen is preparing to attack again, regardless of the time. Tang army shoots off flaming arrows while stepping on tall, movable platforms. The enemies keep on advancing. General Yang cannot comprehend how this is all happening. Thankfully, Samuel shakes him while he is just standing firmly, thus waking his tactical spirit and remembering that they can simply attach the burning bags to the arrows to burn the elevated platforms of the Tang army. While his troops are battling the enemies, he immediately grabs the burning bags. He shoots them off with his bow and arrow, making a small explosion and burning the enemies from above. The fight continues while General Yang shoots the burning bags with his arrows. Finally, it creates an opportunity to drive away the Tang army using tactics far greater than elevated platforms to get inside Ansi Fortress. Just as General Yang finishes burning the tall platforms, the acting general of the Tang army sends off a spear directly at his right shoulder, making him fall to the ground. He grunts as he cannot move and attempts to avoid it but fails as the spear causes significant damage to his body. Samuel then shows up from the rear and stabs the acting general of the Tang army, thus making General Yang survive another day to protect Ansi Fortress. Meanwhile, it humiliates Taizen as he cannot even conquer a small fortress with smaller soldiers to fight with his enormous army. He orders his troops to retreat while he thinks of another tactic to conquer Ansi Fortress. After 4 days, surprisingly, there were no attacks from Taizen and his Tang army. General Yang finally wakes up after being bedridden for 4 days. His right hand tells him to thank Samuel for coming at the last minute to save him from an upcoming attack that may have killed him. Later that evening, they start a small celebration to divert their attention after a stressful stretch of days trying to fend off Taizen and his Tang army. Samuel observes that every soldier and people from Ansi is having fun as they smile and dance, thus finally forgetting his sole mission to assassinate General Yang. Meanwhile, an ashamed Taizen is rethinking his decisions and orders towards the Tang army. He regrets that he underestimated a small fortress. He sends out the Goguryeo medium to Ansi while sending a message to General Yang. She meets with him and informs him that he can still surrender, and it will save everyone while granting them one wish after accepting the offer of Taizen. General Yang does not accept the offer and continues to create more backup plans for his army. Later that morning, Tang army created a larger moving platform that could not quickly burn taller than Ansi. General Yang and his advisor notices that the large moving platform is very dangerous as it enables the enemy forces to enter Ansi easily. Samul then suggests that he will go to Goguryeo and ask for assistance for more manpower to fight against the enemy forces. General Yang declines his plan as Paso suggests that they attack the kingdom of Tang while they are distracted. While giving it some thought, he approves of the idea, thus sending a small squadron to strike Tang while they are distracted. But the Goguryong's medium fires off an arrow with a message that alerts the enemies of the sneak strike of Paso and his squad. As soon as Paso arrives at the Tang kingdom, they are immediately taken care of while they send back an injured Paso to signal General Yang to just surrender as defeat is inevitable. The death of Paso enrages Becca, as she fights Tang army alone the following day while focusing on taking down Taizan itself. She defeats several enemies despite being alone, but as they say, so man can easily defeat an army without any help, as she falls miserably at the hands of Taizan's bodyguards. Her corpse is sent back to Ansi as another message for General Yang for him to surrender. Still, he is enraged and plots to defeat the Tang army and its enormous strong platform. Meanwhile, Samul tries to convince General Yun to send reinforcements to aid General Yang in defeating their common enemy Taizan and his Tang troops. He gives it some thought and waits for some time to decide. After some time, he notices some kids playing with sand in the city. He then orders Wo Dai, the head of the miners, to create a small hole to make the built platform fall to the ground, making it easier to strike the enemies. Meanwhile, the miners finally finish the small hole beneath the battlefield and prepare to set it off by burning the wooden poles. Still, it suddenly rains, thus making the poles harder to burn. Wo Dai decides to manually chop off the poles while sacrificing their lives to protect the Ansi Fortress. The final stretch of the war commences as Tang army finally moves to advance with the newly built platform to reach the insides of Ansi Fortress. But as soon as they reach the area of the shallow sand part, the large platform falls, creating an opportunity for General Yang and his army to strike and finally end the war against Taizan. The movie ends with General Yang remembering why he is fighting and defending Ansi. He then fires his last arrow toward the enemy general, thus hitting its left eye. At last, the reinforcements arrive as Samul convinces the general of Goguryeo and backs up General Yang and his troops to fend off Taizan's withering troops. After the fight against Taizan, General Yang and his people restructure the walls of Ansi Fortress to be stronger. He trains more soldiers for any upcoming war while Samul returns to Goguryeo. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.